Hello and welcome to Catalyze Music Academy. My name is Zaak Kerstetter and I'm an Ableton Certified Trainer. And today I want to once again go quite a bit off the beaten path when it comes to music production with Live. And I want to talk about a feature that can do some really cool stuff that nobody is really talking about, which is the IAC driver, which is not even a feature in Live. It's a feature in OS X that allows you to internally route MIDI inside of your computer, meaning we can send MIDI out of Live and then back into Live. And you may be asking yourself, why would I ever want to do that? That sounds very silly. And the reason is you can basically MIDI map Live to itself, meaning we can have a clip on a track, MIDI clip, that has MIDI notes that are then mapped to different functions inside of Live, which allows you to do some really kind of like advanced level automation and sequencing of multiple events. For example, if you wanted to record multiple 2-bar loops in a row and only hit one button to do that, the IAC driver will allow us to do things like this, which can be really fun and really cool, but not something you're going to be using every day in your music production. On top of that, I would like to mention that if you are using a PC, you are not going to be able to use the IAC driver because it's built into OS X. However, there are software programs out there that can do basically the exact same thing that you can download. I know MIDI Yoke has been around for a long time. I'm not sure if that's still being developed or people still use it or it still works or not. But there's other ones like Loop MIDI. And if you know any others, please feel free to put them in the comment section below. I haven't done this on PC in quite a while. So let's go ahead and dive into this and kind of start to figure out how we can use the IAC driver to map things in Live. So first thing we need to do is we need to turn on the IAC driver. And to do that, we're going to go to our audio MIDI setup. So the easy way to do that is just go to the spotlight and just search for audio MIDI setup. There it is. Here's our audio setup, but it doesn't show our MIDI setup. So usually what you need to do is you need to hit the window button up here and hit Show MIDI Studio. This should show you any MIDI controllers you have plugged into your computer, including the IAC driver. So you're going to double click on this and you're going to see there's some options in here. The only thing we care about here is this device is online. We're just going to check that and just make sure that's turned on. Once you've done that, inside of Live, it will now recognize the IAC driver as an input and output in your preferences. So if we go to our preferences here, Command comma or Control comma is the fast way to get to it. Under our MIDI tab, we have down here at the bottom, we have inputs and outputs for the push, which I have plugged in, and I have inputs and outputs for the IAC driver. Now, we need to also understand how the track and remote settings work down here in this area. Track allows you to send MIDI to a track, so you can like play a MIDI instrument or send MIDI out of a track if you wanted to. And remote is for MIDI mapping. So when you hit Command M and everything turns blue and you can start mapping stuff, that's remote. So we need to set this up in a very specific way, otherwise this won't work. Basically, all we need to do is on the IAC driver, on the input, where it says in right here, make sure remote is turned on, and on the output, make sure track is turned on. Once you've done that, you're basically good to go, and that's all you really need to do in terms of like setup and preferences. So we're going to go ahead and try this out. So here I have just an empty MIDI track with nothing going on, and here in our MIDI 2, we can choose where this is going. If you don't see your inputs and outputs, you can hit this I/O button over here in the right side of the screen. Make sure you can see our outputs. And under MIDI 2, we now have an option for the IAC driver. So if I select that, this is now going to send MIDI out to the IAC driver. Keep in mind that if you have any instruments or effects on this track, this will be an audio 2, which means it's not going to work. So make sure there's nothing on here. It's just an empty MIDI track. So once we've done that, I can double click to make a clip and just plug in a MIDI note. And if I hit play, this is now going to take that MIDI note and then send it out to this imaginary space, which is the IAC driver. We can then route this back into Live by hitting Command M and picking anything we want to map this to. Go ahead and delete those guys. So for example, if I wanted to map it to the track on-off or the track activator. So if I click on this, you can see this clip is already playing. You can see it's already lit up green, which means if I hit the space bar, it's going to send that MIDI note out, and then it's going to map it right here. So if I hit space, it then maps the MIDI note C3 to that right there, which means if I just play this clip, each time this clip plays and this MIDI note happens, it's going to turn this track on or turn it off. I can put another one in here, and I can just turn it on and off. Which by itself is not particularly exciting. We could already MIDI map that. We could already automate that in a number of different ways. However, what this really opens the doorway to is having one clip that serves multiple functions, meaning, for example, say I want to record two 2-bar loops on a particular track. I could hit one button and it perform a whole sequence of events, a whole sequence of automated events, and while I can perform and do what I'm doing. So for example, if I'm playing guitar on stage, I need both of my hands to play my guitar. So I want to be able to hit one button and then record multiple loops and then be able to switch back and forth between them or whatever I need to do. So if you are looking to do more on stage, this can be really, really handy for just really kind of complex automation. So let's go ahead and unmap this. And let's try this out. Let's try recording two bar loops. It's a pretty easy example. So if I want to record two bar loops, there's three things that I want to map. The first thing I want to map is the record arm on that track. The second thing I want to map is recording the first clip slot. So we can do that right here. And then the third thing I want to map is the second clip slot. So those are the three mappings I need to do. So we're going to go in here and let's first pick a MIDI note. When I'm doing kind of more complicated sequences like this, I like to start all the way down at the bottom at the MIDI note C-2 and just kind of work my way up from there. That way I don't get confused. So once again, we're going to hit Command M while this clip is activated. We're going to click on the record arm for this other track and I'm going to hit the spacebar. That maps it right there. We then are going to take this MIDI note, we're going to move it up one to C#-2, and we're going to map it to the next clip slot, or the first clip slot up here. Just hit the spacebar, that'll trigger this clip, which will then map this. So here we can see this is mapped to C#-2. And then we can take this up one more time to D-2 and map it to the next clip slot. And then there it is. So those are my mappings. Those are the three things I need to do. However, you could get a lot more complicated than this and add in lots and lots of layers of things to your automation. So now that we've done that, we need to set up a clip to be a sequence of events. So I'm going to start a new MIDI clip here, and we're going to turn loop off, and we're going to make it a few bars long. Change our grid size. We're going to go down here to the very bottom. So what we need to do is this first note here, this is going to be our record arm. So somewhere in this first bar, we just need to make sure there's a record arm. Next thing we want to do is we want our first clip to launch and start recording, which is going to start right here. So we're going to put in a MIDI note right here. So this record arms, this is going to trigger the activation for the first clip to start recording right here. This is going to record for 2 bars from here to here, and then we need to trigger the next clip. So because everything's quantized to a bar, I can put this MIDI note anywhere in this bar and it should be fine. I'm just going to put it right here. And then after this is going to start recording here. And then after 2 bars, say we want it just to loop the second loop. We can put a MIDI note here. Or if we wanted to loop the first loop, we could just put it here. So we'll just do the second loop right here. So that's all I've done. Record arm, start recording the first clip. This is going to trigger the next recording of the clip starting right here. And this is going to loop that clip. That's it. So that's all I've done so far. Hopefully, if I've done this correctly, if I haven't screwed this up, it should record 2 bar loops for me. And I just got a little electric piano guy here that I'm going to try to play in. So we'll start over here. I'm going to hit this button, make sure the metronome is turned on, and let's see if this works. So here's the second of the 2 bar loops that I recorded, and here's the first of the 2 bar loops that I created. This recorded again a little earlier, so I can get rid of that. But that's the basic concept here. You can basically set up sequences of automation that can be triggering clips that are already recorded, recording new clips, recording clips across multiple tracks, record arming multiple tracks. You can also do this for automation. So for example, if you had a filter, you have an auto filter, and you wanted that auto filter to move over time on a particular track or multiple tracks, we could map that as well. So let's make a new clip in here. And if I go to my automation, underneath the MIDI control option, let's say we want to map it to CC19. Just put a little bit of automation in here. So now when I play this clip, it's going to be sending out CC19. So when I hit Command M, I can map that anywhere I want. So now as I play this clip, it's going to automate something on another track, which again is not terribly exciting. You can generally automate things on their own tracks by themselves, but you could combine launching clips and recording clips, as well as turning effects on, turning effects off, making things move and change simultaneously, which can be really cool. You could also combine this with functions like follow actions. So you could hit play on one, it performs a sequence of events, and then it'll automatically go to the next one, perform another sequence of events. So really, really handy for a live performance. And that way, when you're on stage, you can hit one button, have it do a whole set group of things, and then kind of keep performing, whether you're a vocalist or a guitarist or playing your instrument, or just doing whatever you want to be doing on stage. So that's the kind of basic idea here. Hopefully that made sense. I know there's a lot of info in a very short period of time, but basically we are sending MIDI out to the IAC driver. We are then mapping it to whatever functions we want. And it's basically, when you hit Command M, anything that turns blue can be MIDI mapped. So you can map any of this functionality from any one clip, and then you sequence those together using MIDI notes or using automation if you want to. Although generally when I'm doing this, it tends to be like on-off kind of automation stuff. So hopefully you enjoyed watching that. Hopefully that's useful for you. If you are already using the ISU driver, I'm super curious to see what kind of functions you like to use it for. Where does it come into play? I use it mostly in more kind of complicated live performance setups, but I think there's a lot of interesting creative potential here. So if you did enjoy watching that, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. I release videos every Monday and Thursday, as well as streaming on Tuesday and Fridays. So once again, thanks for watching, and hopefully I will see you again soon.